Daled. What is a leket? That which falls down during the reaping. If while reaping a person reaped a handful, picked a fistful, or a thorn struck him and he fell from his hand to the ground, then this is the owner's. Inside the hand and inside the sickle for the poor. Excuse me. Behind the hand and behind the sickle for the owner. The top of the hand and the top of the sickle, Reb Ishmael says for the poor. Reb Akiva says for the owner. Ant holes among the standing corn are the owners. Those after the reaper, the upper ones are for the poor, and the lower ones are for the owners. If Meir says all are for the poor, for doubtful leket is leket. A heap under which leket has not been gathered, wherever touches the ground belongs to the poor. If the wind scattered the sheaves, they assess it, how much leket it would yield, and it gives to the poor. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamil says he gives to the poor as much as usually falls. Okay. Okay.
Okay. All right. Mishna base. Shiboles shebekatzir the Rosha Magia Lekama. So now, without, I think most people explain that this is talking about this is now talking about shikha. So shikha is the things that are left behind. There are some who say that we haven't that since we haven't explicitly introduced this to the subject of shikha, we're still talking about leket. But then you also have to explain that you can have leket of things that are still attached to the ground, which is a little bit of a difficulty. So I'm going to go along with the interpretation that this mission is now talking about shirka. So basically things that were left behind. Now, if if the harvester has walked behind and left behind a stalk of grain, okay, but he's going in stripes and coming back, and on his return journey he's going to be coming on to the next one. Now there's this one lone little stalk that's been left from his previous pass, and the Mishnah is telling us that Shivolah Shebekatzir v'Rosha Magia Lekama, and it can still, if you bend it over, you could still harvest it together with the but that he's going to be harvesting now. Im nikretzes im hakama hare he shall balabais. If it can still be harvested with the same in the same movement as the rest of the standing grain, it belongs to the ana. Im lav hare he shall aniyim. Otherwise, it belongs to the poor. Shiboles shall leket shenis arva begadish. Now, returning now to the topic of leket. So you had some leket stuff that fell along the way, and it belonged to the aniyim, but accidentally it got mixed up into a stack, not a haystack, but into a pile of produce of that belongs to the Baal of Ice. So the Baal of Ice has got to return the leket to the aniyim, but he's got a bit of a problem now. And now that he's made a pile, the stuff that's in the pile is chayiv in trumas and masras.
Right.
So he can't just take something out and say, okay, this is for the ani, because he's got to give back to the ani something that the ani can eat immediately, not something that the ani is now got to worry about taking trumas and masros. Okay, so what has he got to do? He's got to be ma'aser shiboris achas. He's got to take trumas and masros from one from an equivalent amount and give it to an ani. Now, how would he be able to do that? So basically, he would take two. He would take two. What's in an ear? Two ears, and make a conditional thing and say, if this. So I'll say on this one, if this is the leket, the original leket, then I'm going to give it to the ani anyway. And if it's not a leket, then the trumas are separated onto this one over here, and and like does the whole thing of taking Truma and Maser onto the other one, and now this one is free of it's now Mitukan, and either it's Leket or it's Mitukan, and he can give it to the Ani, and then he does the same thing, the same conditional. Um, oh wait, with the sorry, then he doesn't know what's with that first one. So then he would have to keep that one aside. I think he would have to keep that one aside to be able to. חוזר, מסנה כן על שיבולת שנייה. Um, and if he, oh, but if it's, He gives it one. Hold on, how does he? No, he can't. He couldn't do that. If it's um, okay, the explanation in Kahati actually doesn't make sense now that I'm just thinking through it. It doesn't. I don't see how that could work. But whatever the case, once he's done it on the one, he'd have to just keep the other one aside and put that aside because that's where he's put his Trumas and Masters on and give that as doubtful Truma to a coin. Okay. Um, Now, Amar Rabbi Eliezer, says, how can the ani do a trade with the produce that isn't his? Now, remember, interesting thing over here is that Rabbi Eliezer himself is the one who a few Mishnayos back said that an Asher is allowed to go into the field and collect Peah and Shecha and Leket on behalf of Aniyim, right? Because he allows the double migor. Remember, we were talking about the double migor where he can go in and do this, and the Chachamim didn't like that. So according to him, what they're saying is actually fine. But he's saying, Chachamim, you disagreed with me on this, and now you're telling me that that the Asher, the Baal Habayis can make a kinyan on this on behalf of the Ani and say, I'm doing a swap over here. He says, rather, what he must do is he must give the ani a gift of the entire gadish on condition that he's going to return all but one. Okay. And then he takes chumas and master so shiboris achas v'nosein lo. And then he can do what you're saying, but you have to make a kinyan first before you can actually do this trade. The Chachamim disagree with that, and they say, look, this is a situation where it's a case of Hefker based in Hefker. Is that right? Where he is mm, the Chachamim hold that in this matter they may in this matter the Chachamim said that we were allowing you to be mizake because it was it's for the benefit because it's for the benefit of all the because it's for the benefit of the aniyim and therefore he's allowed to do this. He's allowed to do the swap, and the halacha follows the chachamim.
So he takes this whole heap and he has to
No, no, that's only Rabbi Eliezer's, and nobody holds by that because Rabbi Eliezer by himself agrees with them. He says, I hold that you could do this because I'm the one who says that an usher can walk through the field and collect on behalf of a particular ani. You
so
don't
our,
you don't let him do that. So how come you let him do this whole shtick that you're talking about now? And they say because that's the way we paskin that in this particular corner case, yeah, we're going to allow you to do that. We're not worried about this spreading to general practice because it's already a real edge case that when you're ever going to see it. Okay. Ein megalgelin betofech. So you're not allowed to. So when there's leket lying on the ground, says Rabbi Meir, you're not allowed to start irrigating your field because then the water's going to come in and mess up the stuff for the aniyim, and or it's going to get all muddy. They're not going to be able to pick it up. It's going to get all schmutzig. Chachamim matir mipnei she'efshar. The Chachamim say it is possible to do it in a careful way that you don't mess up the leket and you keep and therefore the halacha is that it is permitted. Short Mishnah there. And Daled, Bala Bais Shehaya Over Makom Lemakom. Okay, you got a traveler who doesn't have his MasterCard. Okay, right? When in those days when you were traveling, you carried your wealth with you. And it didn't matter if you owned like 10 dunams of field in one part of the world, if you come to another part of the world and you've got nothing on you, you're an ani. Okay. וצריך ליטול לקט, שיחה ופאה. So he comes to another part of the country and he just and his funds have dried up or he was robbed along the way or whatever it is. It doesn't matter how rich he is with all of his stuff at home, and he needs to go and collect leket shecha and peah and master ani. You're told, no problem. He's allowed to take. וכשيחזור לביתו ישלם דברי Rabbi Eliezer. So Rabbi Eliezer says, but when you get home, you should take the value of whatever you consumed and give that to the aniyim because you weren't really an ani. Chachamim omrim ani haya ba'os hashah. He says there's no obligation at all to repay because that he was an ani at that time, even though far away at home he had property and he had money, but he needed it, and that's what the matanos are for. There's a bit of a discussion as to what the halacha is lemase because some where is it? There's a bit of a discussion.
Rambam says he must
Rambam.
pay.
Rambam says as a midas chasidus he should give it back. Um, but like the Gra says not even a midas chasidus. Interesting that he has another case where the Gra argues with the Rambam, which is now the Gra is an Achron and the Rambam's a Rishon. The Gra should not be allowed to argue with the Rambam, but he does that a few times. Okay,
Who's to argue with him?
yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Peah.
Base, yeah, base. Hey,
If a person sows his field with one kind, even though he does so in two threshing floors, he gives one peah. If he sowed it with two types, even though he did so in one threshing time, he gives two peah. If a person sows his field is with two types of wheat, he does so in one threshing time, and he gives peah. Two threshing times, he gives two peah. It once happened that Reb Shimon of Bizbah sold before Reb Gamaliel, and they came to the Gaza chamber, and they asked Nachman the scribe. Asked Nathan the scribe said, "I received from Rabbi Yaisha, who received from father, who received from Peah, who received from the prophets, the law given to Moshe at Sinai, regarding the person who sows his field with two types of wheat. If he did them in one threshing floor, he gives Peah. Two, he gives two Peah. A field that non-Jews reap, robbers reaped, ants have bitten, the wind or the cattle broke is exempt. And if he reaped half of it and the robbers reaped half of it, he is exempt. It is exempt. The obligation to pay is fulfilled with the standing corn. Okay.
okay.
Oxen. Oxen. Okay. Olive of. A peduncle of figs, dried pigs, chickpeas, and carobs, these contract tuma and convey tuma and combine. Rabbi Yoshi says even the peduncle of a gourd. The peduncle of pears, crystamillon apples, quinces, and sorbs, the peduncle of a gourd, the handbreadth, the peduncle of an eggplant, of a handbreadth. If Eleazar, the son of Zadok, says two handbreadth these contract tuma and convey tuma, but do not combine. All other peduncles do not contract tuma and they do not convey tuma. Olives that one preserved with their leaves are tahor because he only soaked them for their appearance. The hairs of cucumbers and its blossom are tahor. The Rebbe Yehuda says as long as the cucumber is by a merchant, it's tameh. And all pits contract tuma and convey tuma, but do not combine. The pit of the moist state, even though he protrudes, combines, but the pit of a dry date does not combine. Therefore, the membrane of a dry date combines, but the membrane of a moist state does not combine. And the pit of which a portion protrudes, or that which is opposite the food, combines. A bone in which there is meat, which is opposite the food, combines. If meat was on one side of the bone, Rabbi Israel says we view it as the meat surrounds the bone in a ring. But the come and say what is opposite the food combines, like wild rosemary, hyssop, and savory.
Okay.
Okay. And gross. Okay, Gimel base. How so? A cistern in a courtyard in which 3 lugim of shuvin fell is forever in its disqualified state until the full amount of its original contents flow out plus a little more, or until he sets up in the courtyard a mikvah of 40 saw and the upper waters become tahor by the lower ones. Eliezer and Azariah says that declares it invalid unless he closes it up. If a cistern is full of drawn water and a canal falls into it and out of it, it is forever in its qualified state until it is calculated that 3 lugim in the former water do not remain. If 2 vessels empty into a mikvah, one of them a log and a half and the other also a log and a half, or if one wrings out his garment and the water pours into the mikvah from many places, or if one pours out of a perforated cup and the water pours into the mikvah from many places, the Rekiva declares it's still valid and it's come and disqualify it. Rabbi Kiva says they did not say a vessel's empty, but if a vessel empties, they said to him, they said neither one nor the other, but a mikvah into which 3 lugim of shuvin fell. The waters from one vessel or from 2 or 3 combine, but for 4 they do not combine. Similarly, regarding a Balkari who was sick and 9 carbon of water fell over him, or a person who was tahor and 3 lugim of water fell over his head and the greater part of his body, the waters from one vessel, from two or three combine, but from four they do not combine. When are these vessels words said? When the second vessel started emptying before the first one ceased. And when are the words said? When he had no intention to increase the mikvah, but if he had intended to increase the additions of even 1 quart at a time, all year long, combined to 3 lubim. Okay.
Okay.
Inam. Gimel Vav. If a woman said, "It is hereby incumbent upon me to bring a pair of birds as donated olos when I gave birth to a boy," if she gave birth to a boy, she must bring 2 pairs of bird offerings, 1 pair for the vow and 1 for her obligation. If she gave them to a Kohen, and the Kohen is supposed to offer 3 birds above the red line and 1 below it, if he did not do so, rather he offered 2 of the birds above and 2 below, without inquiring, she must now bring 1 more bird, which the Kohen should offer above the red line. This is the rule. If the 2 pairs were both of one species, if however, this is the rule if the 2 pairs were of both species. If, however, they were of 2 species, she must now bring 2 additional birds. If she had specified the species of birds with which to fill a vow, she just now bring another 3 birds as olos. This is the rule. If the original 2 pairs were both of one species, if they were of 2 species, she may not bring 4 additional birds as olos. If she had fixed her vow, she must now bring another 5 birds. This is the rule if the original 2 pairs were both of one species. If they were of 2 species, she must now bring another 6 birds. If she gave them to a Kohen, but it is not known what species of birds she gave, and the Kohen went and offered them, but it is not known exactly what he did with them, she must now bring another 4 birds for her vow, 2 more birds for the Ola of childbirth obligation, and 1 more child katas for the childbirth obligation. As I said, she must bring 2 katos. Rabbi Yeshua said this is analogous to what people have said regarding a ram. While he is alive, his voice is 1, and when he is dead, his voice is 7. How is that his voice is 7 after he dies? His 2 horns can serve as 2 trumpets, his 2 thighs bones serve as 2 flutes, his hide for a drum, his stomach for the second sound box of lyres, and his intestines for harp strings. Some say his will too can serve for tekelas. Rabbi Shimon Akashia says elderly unlearned men, as they continue to age, their minds get more confused. As it is stated, he removes the speech of the capable and takes away the reasoning of the elderly. But elders of Torah are not like that. Rather, as they combine to age, their minds become even more settled, as it is stated, in the age is wisdom and in length of days understanding.
Hadran alach, Maseches Kinim, Hadran alach, Seder Kodshim. Okay, Kalim.
Go. This is the big one, Caleb.
Let's be the big baby. Yep.
Okay. Come on. Skipping to one page. Aleph. The Abbas of Tuma are a sheret, a seminal discharge, one who contracted Tuma from a corpse, a mitzora during the days of his counting, and purification waters that are insufficient to sprinkle. They render people and utensils tame via contact and earthenware utensil via airspace, but they do not render one tame via being carried. Above them are novella and purification waters. They are sufficient for sprinkling, and that they render a person tame via carrying to render. Clothing tame via contact, but clothing is spared from tuma when there's only contact.
Okay.
And we have Bava Metzia. Vav. If there were 2 gardens one above the other, with vegetables between them, Meir says they belong to the upper one. Rabbi Yehuda says they belong to the lower one. Rabbi Meir says that the upper one should decide to remove his earth, there would be no vegetables. Said Rabbi Yehuda, if the lower one should decide to fill up his garden, there would be no vegetables. And said Rabbi Meir, since both of them could stop one another, we should see from where these vegetables sustain themselves. Rabbi Shimon said, whatever the upper one can stretch out his hand and take as his, and the remainder belongs to the lower one.
Hadran alach, Maseches Bava Metzia. Astra.
Aleph. Partners who agree to the partition of a courtyard build a wall in the middle. Wherever they are accustomed to build with untrimmed stones, or with hewn stones, or with half blocks or bricks, they build all in accordance with the custom of the province. For untrimmed stones, each one provides 3 handbreadths for hewn stones. Each one provides 2.5 handbreadths for half bricks. Each one provides 2 handbreadths for bricks. Each one provides 1.5 handbreadth. Therefore, if the wall fell, the place and the stones belong to both of them. Similarly, a garden is treated generally as a place where they were accustomed to fence off, and we obligate him to do so. However, a valley is treated generally as a place where they were accustomed not to fence off, and we do not obligate him to do so. Rather, if he desires, he should withdraw into his own field, build a fence, and make a mark on the outside. Therefore, if the wall fell, by common consent, they build the wall in the middle and make marks on both sides. Therefore, if the wall fell, the place and the stones belong to the both of them.
Okay.
And you have column. Dalit. What did they do with the remainder of the truma? They made gold sheets to plate the holy of holies. Rabbi Yisrael says the profit of the fruit is used to purchase animals which are offered upon the altar when it is idle, and the remainder of the truma is used for the utensils needed for the temple service. Rabbi Akiva says the remainder of the truma is used to purchase animals which are offered upon the altar when it is idle, and the remainder of the sachem is used for the utensils needed for the temple service. Hananya says, Sagana the Kohen, the remainder of the Nesakim is used to purchase animals which are offered upon the altar when it is idle, and the remainder of the truma is used for the utensils needed for the temple service. Neither one or the other admitted concerning the permissibility of profiting from the fruits. What did they do with the remainder of the incense? They would set aside the truma, an equal amount to the artisan's wages, and would redeem the incense with the artisan's wages. Then they would give the incense to the artisans as their wages and repurchase it from them with funds from the new truma. If the new skelim came in time, they purchased the incense with funds from the new truma, if not from the old. If one consecrated his possessions, and among them were things suitable for communal offerings, these things should be given to the artisans for their wages, and these are the words of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Azar said to him, this is not the same method described above. Rather, they set aside from these things an equal amount to the artisan's wages and redeem them with funds set aside for the artisan's wages. Then they give them to the artisans as their wages and repurchase them with funds from the new truma.
Okay.
Okay.
Coolio.
Have a great day. I know you got to run. So
Okay.
have a
Cheers.
thank you.